Good afternoon and welcome to the ChinaMed Tel Aviv University China in the Mid-Med Connectivity and Security series of online seminars. This series of events looks at China's role in the wider Middle East and Mediterranean region from the inside-out perspective and is intended to complement an earlier series that looked at China's role in the Mid-Med from a global perspective. My name is Sela and I am the chair of the Department of East Asian Studies at Tel Aviv University. My co-hosts are Professor Enrico Fardella, the director of Peking University's Center for Mediterranean Area Studies, CMAS, and director of the ChinaMed Research Project, and Professor Friedman, the director of research at Tel Aviv University's Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies. It is my privilege to introduce our guests and panelists for today's seminar, China's Infrastructure and Logistics in the Mid-Med. Unlike many other events that bring strictly academic perspective, it is our view that we have a lot to learn and share with practitioners who on a daily basis deal with these issues on the ground or, in today's panel, on the sea. By the way, we were supposed to have prominent women practitioners on board, but they had to cancel due to unforeseen managerial duties. But with us today are Massimo Deandreis, is General Manager of SRM, an economic research center related to the Intesa Sanpaolo banking group, specialized in the Italian economy, energy issues, and maritime economy in a European and Mediterranean perspective. He is also currently president of GEI, the Italian Society of Business Economists, and professor of business management at University of Turin. With us today also Mr. Fulvio Lino di Blasio, Secretary General of the Port System Authority, Maor Ionio, based at the Port of Taranto since May 2017. Formerly, he served as Director in Ernst & Young Financial Business Advisors, and he is a senior expert in the field of transport and logistics infrastructure. As such, he has supported the Italian Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport, working as coordinator of the team in charge of the strategies for transport and logistics infrastructures in 2016, the national guidelines for evaluating the infrastructural projects of all transport modes, also in 2016, and the national strategic plan for ports and logistics a year earlier. Last but not least is Captain Yigal Maor. Captain Yigal Maor is the Director General of the Administration of Shippings and Ports at Israel's Ministry of Transportation. After serving in the Israeli Merchant Navy in command positions, Captain Maor served in various senior executive management positions in TSIM, Integrated Shipping Services, head office, and as a member of TSIM's senior management team. Captain Maor holds Master's Mariner FG certificate, teaches maritime courses at the University of Haifa in the Faculty of Management, Business and Administration Department, Shipping and Ports program. Thank you for joining us today. So let's get started. Our goal for this event is to discuss China's role in infrastructure and logistics in the region, with an emphasis on how it affects countries in the Middle East and Mediterranean regions, both in terms of opportunities, but also challenges. I would like to begin asking each of you to address this topic from your own experience and perspective. With your permission, let us begin with Fulvio and Yigal, who can bring their specific location into the discussions, and then Massimo, who may provide for a larger overview. So, Fulvio, would you like to begin?
Okay, Taranto is one of the major ports of the Italian system, and that is my point of view. It starts from there. Or better, Taranto has been one of the major ports of the Italian system, and exactly some years ago, 6 years ago, was the second port of Italian port in terms of throughput. And after these years, we experienced big problems due to the crisis of 2008 Then, after a period of couple of years where things were going better, around 2011, we experienced a deep Italian the crisis of the steel plant in Taranto, Ilva, and also our terminal container company. There was a consortium composed by Evan Green and Hutchinson. They left our port and went to Paris. So we had that moment the idea to take the chance to renovate completely our terminal, and then to invest around 500 million euros of public investment in the port. After that, we are now back in the market, and we were able to attract the attention of a number of investors. And one of that is Ilport Holding, that now is our concessionaire for 49 years of the container terminal. So this is very important, because after that, we are now back in the top, I guess, investment opportunities in the countries. And we have been experiencing this interest also together with the Intesa San Paolo in some of our global events, and recently in Beijing as well. And in that meetings, we saw that the Chinese attention was changing a little bit, with a specific focus on the Med area. Massimo will tell us about what changed in the last years in the Mediterranean, and for this reason we have been contacted by a number of companies in the field of infrastructure and logistics, because the Taranto was now a new port, because without the commercial pillar of our strategy, we were just an industrial port with huge players like ArcelorMittal or Lark Eni for the petrol traffic, but the commercial side, as well also the cruise part of our business, is now a new point of attraction. Now the Chinese approach is very, very, of course, planned. Now we are talking about the BRI, but that is something that's been planned a number of decades ago. And we are just now experiencing what the results of this planning. My first consideration is that in the port system, we think that the approach of the European Union is not such strong as the Chinese one. There is no strong European strategy on the European port system in the area, and this is why the interest of the Chinese government and of the public companies, Chinese public companies, is so strong and specific. In what? In the looking for infrastructure opportunities. So generally speaking, our experience is they go firstly with the construction capability. So they put in place their capability to build huge infrastructure in ports, in logistics, in roads, in rail, in airport, and everything. The approach was a systematic approach, also in our case, in our situation. And of course, now after that, they look at other opportunities to bring traffic and to bring logistics and the opportunities of business. But first of all, our experience was they were looking at Taranto if there was something to build. And after a while, we, of course, had the first preliminary approach, and then we were back in the agenda also of the Italian cabina di regia, Italian table that is managed by the Ministry of External Affairs together with the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport. And what is interesting is that for a couple of years, just Trieste and Genoa were the two main points of attention for the Chinese investors. And for in that case, what differentiate our possible deal is that is a real construction of a new container terminal platform together with the construction of logistics activities connected. So from a general point of view, I would say that they had a very they were very aware of the situation of Taranto. They arrived with many information on the connectivity, on the intermodality of our port, and also about the gaps that we had. And their plan was to arrive and to build something new in order to make Taranto a port that was again connected with the EU business, with the EU network of transport. And what is interesting is that at a certain moment they arrived with a new terminal operator that is Airport. And Airport, you know, is a group, is an holding that owns the 24% of CMA CGM. So it's a Turkish company, but with a global business model and with a kind of agreement that was signed, I guess, around September 2019 with the Costco. So they had in their business plan, in their relationship, also this link with the Chinese market. And now they are talking together and to see if there are opportunities for them. And but I don't know, this is something that is related to the market. Another thing is that, again, within this institutional framework that we have, so the different ministries, the Chinese government is very keen to talk. They want to talk directly with the public institutions. Generally, they don't, according to my experience, they don't want to talk with advisors, with the companies, intermediate, because they are all public-owned companies, and they want to talk directly with the government. And in fact, what has changed the written of the approach is, of course, this when the memorandum of understanding was signed between Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Conte. From that moment on, they started really with a different approach, because in their target they had to implement this global strategy in the port sector. And of course, they were also very keen to involve the local business because we talked directly about the fact that, you know, at the local level, sometimes there is some problems to have a foreign investment that is without any connection with the local capabilities and connection. And they were very available to talk and to cooperate with the companies that were around the southern of Italy. Now we are, of course, after I am talking about something that happened for 5 or 6 months ago. We experienced, of course, a kind of a standby period, and we are trying to come back to those tables, because it's very important for us, also because now the terminal container is starting. The first ship will call Taranto CMA. It will call Taranto in these days on Sunday. So this is a big news. So Taranto is really back also from the operative point of view, and also with a rail connection. And this is very important, because this is a demonstration that is a real alternative to other ports. And this is, in synthesis, this is my experience about the Chinese investment.
Thank you very much, Fulvio. Yigal, you need to unmute.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I wish a lot of success to Mr. De Blasio. I remember the port of Taranto from the glorious day of Mr. Luigi Maneschi, you know, with green season and everything which happened with this port, which is really in a very strategic point in Italy. And I think that it deserves a lot of success, and I hope that with Yield Port, with the Yield Dream group, they really succeed to bring back the glory to Toronto. Really, Toronto and Puglia deserve this. So going back to the Eastern Mediterranean in general and the Haifa in particular, I would like to say that from a real discussion about logistics issues a few years ago, we are really now stepping in a road full with political minds, you know, and I have to be very careful not to step on one of them. But the whole logistic issue became completely involved with political arguments, and the struggle between China and the United States, as we call them, the big elephant in the room, you know, is something which is we have to take it into consideration and to think about it all the time, even that my perspective is completely, as I said, is coming from the logistic point of view. So, as you know, Israel is leaning completely on its maritime trade. About 99% of the Israeli foreign commerce is coming through the ports, mainly the two ports, Haifa and Ashdod. And we came really to a situation in which we understood that we have to develop our ports. It means to increase, first of all, the draft and the depth of the ports and the other infrastructures in order to accommodate the ships that grew in an unexpected way. And then we also had to follow up the development of the activity in Israel, and this is why we went on building those two new terminals. As you know, we went to international bids, which was open to everybody, including European, American, and Asian participants. And the results were, as everybody knows today, that MSC, namely TIL, took the concession in the port of Ashdod, and the SIPG took the concession the port in Haifa. Talking about the percentage, because I see in a lot of places that it says that the Chinese are controlling the port of Haifa. Well, the truth have to be said that they will operate only something like 15%, 15% of the berths in Haifa. For now, they are only going to do container activity, and they are not involved completely with the marine traffic operations. It means that they can only load and discharge, and they are not controlling the entrances or departures of the vessels in the port. So this is the situation now in Israel. Last week we received the first RMGs, the cranes which will run on the shore to accommodate the containers in the stacking area. In a week from now, the port is going to get the first 4 ship-to-shore cranes, which are arriving on a special ship from Shanghai, from ZPMC. And in about a year from now, even hopefully even before, we will start. The port will start to be operational in Haifa and Ashdod as well. So this is regarding the situation here with the Chinese involvement in the container port of Haifa. I think that the involvement of China here, and we can divide, you know, the involvement of the Chinese interest in logistics in the Eastern Mediterranean is divided into 2. One is the, as I can say, strategic point of view, and in this group, I think that Piraeus is leading this direction. And the second one is just a normal economic operations and interests even show that everybody is telling us that the Chinese are not having any innocent intentions. Everything is in purpose, but I think that there is it is a pure investment and concession to operate container activity, which can bring a lot of economical profit to the Chinese. And I'm talking logistic-wise. I leave the security issues to other people which are experts in this area, which I'm not involved with. I don't understand nothing about it. Of course, you can see the potential of Haifa in the connection eastward through the new railway from Haifa to the border with Jordan. Later on, the connection from Jordan to Saudi Arabia, and then there is a railway from the Jordanian border up down to Riyadh and Dammam and other ports in the western shores of the Arabian Gulf. And this could be something which the Chinese took into consideration, and this also explains why they were so interested in Haifa and not in Ashdod, which is sitting really on the heaviest economical hinterland of Israel. So I don't see for now, any serious intentions, as was said in the beginning, to build and operate a train from Eilat to Ashdod or to Haifa. We have also to understand that Eilat is a very limited port. It's a very limited draft port. You cannot dredge the port of Eilat because of environmental constraints. And the ships which are calling today the Red Sea range, namely Port Sudan, Jeddah, Aqaba, etc., which are ships of 6,000 to, I would say, 5,000 to 6,000 and 7,000 TEUs, cannot call Eilat at all. So I'm not sure about the interests which everybody is talking about in Eilat. Okay, Ori, a brief.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Yigal. And now to Massimo.
Yeah, thank you. I try to share my screen because I have a presentation. Can you see the screen? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. So just 1 second. Okay, perfect. Great. So good afternoon. And while you are seeing the 3 points of my agenda, which are, I mean, more with a more global view in comparison with the 2 previous speakers, I would also use this one first minute to thanks very much Professor Sela for this invitation, together with my friend Enrico Fardella. So as you can see, the first point of my agenda is a picture of the maritime economy before COVID, especially in the Mediterranean, with a focus on the role of China. Then we will move on the impact of COVID on the global trade and shipping, and again, the role of China, and some conclusion on the role of logistics and connectivity for competitiveness. Let me start with a brief overview on global maritime economy. Let's remember, I think it's important to remember that 90%, as you can see, of the world trade is by maritime mode. That means almost 12 billion tons, plus 32% in the last 10 years. A vast majority of this trade is by dry bulk, then liquid bulk, followed by containers, 16%. In 2019, 41% of the total shipping trade was in Asian port, as you can see. In the last 10 years, we had a significant improvement for Mediterranean ports. They increased their market share. If we compare 2019 with 2010, we see that the North European ports that still are more efficient, we must remember that, In any case, North European ports in this period, 2010-2019, declined from 44% to 39% of the global Euro-Mediterranean market shares, while in the same period of time, the different parts of the South Mediterranean, so the global South Mediterranean ports increased from 38 to 42%. If we look at the containers, that we must remember are the main modality for manufacturing trade, we see that in the last 5 years, we had a constant increase in containers trade in the Mediterranean with a significant growth of 21%. This was due clearly to the Chinese growing role in the Mediterranean and the opening of the new Suez Canal in 2016. In fact, since the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative, China grew its strategic positioning in the Mediterranean. And here we have a clear picture that I also posted in my presentation last year, and I also posted in the presentation we did in Beijing. Fulvio, just to remember that when we were together for the mission we have with potential in Chinese investors. In this picture, you have the strategic positioning of the Chinese in the Mediterranean. They have the total control of the Piraeus port. They have a significant role in some of the most important ports in the Mediterranean and in North Europe. They have a growing role in Israeli port, you know better than mine, we just heard. They have a key role in Port Said, which is the Mediterranean port of the Suez Canal. They also have a significant role in Dubai. In 2016, COSCO started to operate in Genoa. They signed a memorandum with Trieste. We have just heard the positioning of Taranto. So they are more and more interested in entering in Italy. So the point is that the Mediterranean is strategic for the Chinese because it's a crossroad to reach Europe in the north and the MENA countries in the south. And this region, this Euro-Mediterranean, or better saying Euro-MENA region, together, we must remember, is more or less 20,000 billion of GDP, at least ante-COVID. But in any case, the most important GDP area in the world with the Mediterranean in the middle. And reaching the Mediterranean means also reaching an area where, if you want, you can pass through Gibraltar and you have the option to reach the north of Europe or to reach the east coast of the United States. But as I said, at least that was the scenario until January 2020. But we know something unexpected happened at the beginning of this year. The COVID-19 pandemic, as you can see, is having a huge impact on global economy and trade, and this changing paradigms worldwide. Quarterly trade of goods dropped at minus 27% is the blue line in that figure in comparison with the same period of 2019. Yearly trade of goods dropped at minus 5% is the red line. In the second quarter, expected to decline to minus 20% for the full 2020 year. World export is explicative of this situation, and looking at the monthly percentage from January to May for the different countries, we can clearly perceive that the COVID-19 wave that started in China, then follow in Europe, and now is in United States and more generally in America. Because we had minus 22% of export in China in January, with a recovery in April and a new drop in May. We had minus 30% in Europe in March. We had minus 29% in United States in May. So everywhere we had a dramatic falls. And as consequence, we had sharp decline in ports, especially the two most important ports in Europe and China, Shanghai and Rotterdam. Shanghai lost 8.5% from January to April. Rotterdam lost a little less, 4.7%, but the point is that we only have data for 3 months, January, March, not for May, April and May. So I think the difference with Shanghai will be not so important. And another point is that on the main east-west routes, the numbers of canceled, what we call blank sailing between April and June was 257 ships, equal to almost 3 million TEUs, containers lost. So a very important figure. Another angles to see this situation is Suez, which is a gauge of traffic trends and Chinese presence in the Mediterranean. And here, if we look the figure, we see that the total number of ships in the period between January to May increased plus 7%. But if we look more in details, we see that the positive performances of oil tankers and dry bulker is mainly due to regional traffic from the Gulf to the Mediterranean and vice versa. While container ship, as you can see, declined by 15%. And this is the indicator of the fall of high value manufacturing trade from Asia to Europe. Very, very clear. We can see now 2 pictures that explain this situation very well, I think. The red line is the intensity of container ship passages from Asia to Europe and vice versa in 2019, so before COVID. It's the picture, we can say, it's the picture of the Belt and Road, okay? Now we have the picture of the first part of this pandemic here, the 5 months of this 2020. We see a reduction of the intensity of the red line along the traditional route via Suez for container ship. This is only for container ship, okay? So we see, I mean, the reduction of the intensity of the red line, but more important, we see some container ship that decided to pass through the Cape of Good Hope, you see, across Africa, because despite the longer route, the currently lower price of oil and the fact that not paying Suez toll, which is expensive, represent finally a positive trade-off to reduce sailing costs and to reduce, I mean, the cost of the transportation. So very interesting, because a part of a number of ships decided to use another longer route, but less expensive, if we want, in that specific moment, because of oil price. So the point is that there is a permanent need to search for new options and new routes to save money. And this is true also in the high north, the Arctic. From 2011 to 2019, the North Sea route had a significant increase of traffic, plus 134%. Also in the first part of this pandemic here, we had an additional plus 15%. We have to keep in mind that from Japan to Rotterdam, the North Sea route has 19 days of navigation versus 31 days via Suez. So 2 weeks faster is a lot of time and money. From Shanghai to Rotterdam, 1 week faster. We have just published a specific paper on the Arctic route, exploring not only the maritime route, but also energy issues. You know, there are a lot of resources over there. We explore also the juridical and the legal status, which is quite complicated, climate change and environmental impact also, geoeconomic, geopolitical. I mean, I don't have the time to elaborate more, but I can come back if you want during the debate. The only point, the only things I want to say is that the Arctic route is not for tomorrow, this is clear, but we, especially, I use we in the sense that you in Israel, we in Italy, we are part of the Mediterranean area. We in the Mediterranean area, we must look at that, I mean, at the Arctic with a lot of attention for future development. It's not for tomorrow, but for a longer future Perhaps yes. So we should look with a lot of attention. So we have seen the drop in world trade as a consequence of COVID-19. We have seen the fall in container ship. We have seen that the Arctic is now an option where China is entering. And I forgot to say that COSCO in 2019 is a very interesting figure to have in mind. COSCO, last year, 2019, was the most active shipping company in the Arctic, covering 19% of all trips. We have seen the need to search for new routes. The example of Cape of Good Hope in this moment, due to the low level of oil price. We have seen Suez. I mean, how will China Belt and Road Initiative be affected by pandemic that is shaking the world everywhere? We know, this is official, 138 countries involved. 2,951 Belt and Road projects for a value which is around approximately $4 trillion. It's not possible not to be involved. So the pandemic will definitely have a significant economic impact on the Belt and Road. This is for sure. We don't know how much, but the answer is yes, in my opinion. China's growing influence in the Mediterranean in the last 10 years at least was based on building a role as an economic actor, as an economic player, as an economic partner, while keeping a low profile in other areas of interest, such as military cooperation, diplomacy, politics. Building ports, logistics, infrastructures was a key element in this strategy. But currently it is possible, it's possible, and perhaps also probable, but let's leave to the debate, that COVID-19 could harm China's reputation and therefore put this strategy on the line. So how can this situation be overcome? I think that one reply, not of course not the only reply, but one reply could be by improving logistic efficiency. Why? I really think, these are my last two slides, I really think that logistic efficiency and connectivity together, not one or the other, not logistic or connectivity, together are the new challenges in international maritime competitiveness. And the point is that China is not in the top 10 of logistic performance index, while it holds the first place in shipping connectivity index. Europe, on the other hand, is the first player in logistic performance, but not so good in connectivity. So both Europe and China need to invest more to improve connectivity and logistic efficiency, but in a complementary way. And let me finish, finally, let me show you the results of an exercise that we did. Just a sort of intellectual exercise. We put the logistic performance index in relation with the number of COVID-19 cases per million of inhabitants for some countries. We are trying to do that for all the countries, but now I have just some countries. What it seems to emerge is that countries with a higher efficiency in logistics, like Germany, are probably more able, and perhaps we must also ponderate this analysis with the dimension of the countries. We do not yet done, but I think we will do that. In any case, Germany is a big country. So it seems to emerge that countries with a higher efficiency in logistics, and Germany is the example, are probably more able to manage crises like pandemic, because logistics is also a way to speed up supply chain, And this is especially true for emergency provision or in time of crisis like COVID is and was. So what this pandemic teaches us is that investing in logistics and connectivity, and for maritime countries like Italy and Israel, that means to invest in port logistics, is a strategic move, both to support the economy of the country, but also to make the country more resilient to crisis. At least this is my contribution to the debate. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Yigal and Fulvio, I'd love to hear your reactions to what Massimo just suggested, and also perhaps to give us your perspective on, especially on the COVID-19 influence on what you have seen in the past few months, not just the obvious issues, but is there something else that we're missing here? So perhaps we'll start with Yigal this time. Yigal, you're on mute.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Massimo, for your compliment, because the way that Israel attended the how do you call it, the first wave, of the epidemia, means that we have one of the best logistics in the world, So I'm happy with this correlation, But talking about Israel, I can say that regarding the ports, of course, we saw some decline with the imports on the exports. It was very natural because a lot of factories were limited by their manpower, and we saw really a decline. But I can say that the ports are performing just as normal as it can be, and we can see also that the volumes were not so didn't shrink in a way that we saw in other places, as Massimo described. I think also regarding the traffic of China, we can see a real recovery in most of the types of cargo. First of all, we can look at the imports of crude oil and the other raw materials such as iron ores and things like that, and we can see that they are recovering. They are coming back to the situation which they had before the COVID-19. So I believe that some of that is really going to internal consumption, because otherwise we cannot explain it, and it's going in the end into Asia markets because otherwise they are just accumulating raw materials. But as I said, going back to the Eastern Mediterranean, we did not see, I could say, a serious decrease of the cargo operation. I believe that we shall see it in the coming 1, 2, 3, and 4 months, when there will be some kind of a slowdown in the economy of Israel, just as it is all over the world. But for now, the percentage is not. It is not a high percentage that we can notice in the terminal.
Thank you, Fulvio.
I knew some of the. I already saw some of the slides of Massimo, because we recently published our 3-year strategic plan of the Port of Taranto, and that was done together with SRM, with some colleagues of Massimo as well. And those ideas were at the base of our analysis of the market and of the evolution, because we started in November to draft this strategic plan, especially the analysis part, and then we had to change a lot, as you can imagine, in February and March. I agree with the fact that one of the weapon that we have is the logistic efficiency. But this is not a good point. I mean, because Italy is there in the position in the ranking despite its logistic, and this is the real weakness that we have, because we are not efficient. We are not able as an economic, from the point of view of the economic actors, to create a big consortium, to work on the offer of the logistic services. In fact, in Italy, the bigger players that are able to provide the end-to-end service are coming from abroad. So we are big, I don't know, German players that are working in our country, because our system is not very well connected in terms of small operators. So logistic can be one of the answers. I would say that also administrative simplification, because another issue is that we are very, very somehow like in the Middle Age in terms of how much fragmented is the process of giving authorization, of giving permits to make investments. And one of the answers, again, and also in this issue we are together with SRM and the Intesa San Paolo, is the use of the special economic zones that the Italian government decided to put in some of the ports of the south and then extended also in some of the ports of the north. So the port system is at the center of this renovated way to attract investments, but again is for the time being just an initiative that is not well filled in with the right, the good I don't know, simplifications. But this is another issue. And the third one is the digitalization. For sure, if you look at the priorities in the agenda of every kind of organization, public and private, digitalization is now at the top. And also the people, also the talent, the knowledge, and the people experts in digitalization, IT systems, in the logistic chain as the most requested in the market of HR. And also in our case, we have identified in our strategic plan that the first domain of our plan is innovation. Innovation in our internal processes, innovation in the logistic chain of the port, innovation in the way we create opportunities for business, helping big companies to solve all the problems with the new methods, like using startups and a new business environment. But this is at our level. With a global view, I agree with the fact that the Nordic route is a huge point of attention. But in that area, as you know, there are a lot of things that are happening also from the environmental point of view. So this is impacting also all the energy production in the north of Russia. All the plants are having big problems due to the fact that the land is now warmer, and this will impact from an incredible point of view. So I guess that these 3 points, administrative simplification, logistics, and digitalization, can help. But couple of last consideration from our perspective. The Italian, when something happened of this impact, like COVID, like the crisis of the US in 2008, what you can see is how much fragmented is again the Italian system. And in these days, we are talking about how to relaunch the port and logistics system, thanks to new, incentives to the operators, to the ship owners, and how to help the system to restart. But again, there is no a unique approach to the sector. And there is no awareness of how much the sector is important for the Italian economy. So we have to work again also on this side.
Thank you. Brendan?
I thank you all for really interesting, stimulating remarks. You'll have to forgive me. My knowledge of these issues is somewhat shallow and superficial, so I'm going to ask some basic questions, and perhaps some of our viewers will benefit from these questions as well, those who may not have the background that all of you do in these fields. So I'll start with Massimo. Massimo, at the end of your comments, you suggested that a role China might be able to play is to help with efficiency in connecting logistics and connectivity, right? To increase efficiencies across the Mediterranean region. And I think that goes to the heart of what our seminar series is about, really, because when you talk about efficiencies, what you're talking about is reducing regulation and red tape. And then what we've been asking in almost each of our seminars is how that would affect the tension with security, because the spirit or the zeitgeist, if you will, of the period today is tension with China, that everyone needs to be much more focused on the potential security risks involved with China. And so the solution you're suggesting, I'm certainly not challenging it. You certainly know the field much better than I do. But my question, I suppose, is how do you resolve that tension of China's potential to play a very helpful role in increasing efficiencies with the increasing fear of China in terms of security? So that's my question to you. To Yigal, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about why everyone's so focused on Haifa but not Ashdod. You know, we hear a lot about Haifa, and I'm constantly asked, and I certainly can never answer this, but why not about Ashdod? What is the difference? Why are people so focused on Haifa and less focused on Ashdod when it comes to China's involvement here in Israel? And then Fulvio, I had a question. You suggested that the northern route is something from a competition point of view everyone should be concerned about, right, in the long term, because potentially it reduces traffic through the Mediterranean. I just wanted to call your attention. There was an interesting remark that came from an Iranian official who's in charge of the Chabahar free zone in Iran. And he said that the Suez Canal will be replaced by the Chabahar corridor soon or imminently. Now, I know that many people didn't really take this comment with a great deal of seriousness, but certainly the comment represents something, right? And Chabahar is to a certain extent real. So I wondered if Chabahar and the potential of circumventing Suez traffic through an overland route is also something that is being taken strategically into consideration.
Okay.
Whom would you like to start with?
Massimo, I suggest that you start according to the order of Brendan's excellent questions, and after that, Enrico will have his own question.
Okay, thank you. So I totally agree. The key point is increasing logistic efficiency in the Mediterranean. Chinese are trying to do that with their investment. I think that increasing logistic efficiency in the Mediterranean is useful and functional to also increase China logistic efficiency inland. So this was a key point also to understand the Belt and Road. But having said so, I come back to what I said and also put in my slide. COVID-19, I agree that China has the potentiality to recovery soon from the economic point of view. But the point is that China's reputation has been negatively affected by what happened. And this is very important to understand because China's strategy was based on low profile. When you want to have a low profile, you need to have or a positive or at least a neutral reputation. It's very difficult to have a low profile if you have a worst or a negative or, I mean, a declining reputation. So I'm not yet sure, but is an interrogative point, perhaps others better than me can reply, that COVID and pandemic, and especially because there is pressure against China. United States is putting pressure, but not only United States, you know, Australia, UK, the Five Eyes, if I remember the name, but also the, you know, the international press. I mean, the narrative is changing, the mood is changing. So I'm just analyzing, it's not my opinion. I see the mood is changing. And when the mood is changing, it's very, very difficult, in my opinion. Also, if you have the potentiality to recover the economy soon, to continue with the same timetable that was before. This is just one point on Suez, because we study Suez. We did a study in relation with Panama, when Panama was opening the new enlargement of Panama 2 years ago. We now just finished to publish this paper. If it's interesting to you, I will send you. It's 134 pages, just to say it's not a small paper. It's on the Arctic, very complete with a broad analysis from different angles and perspectives. Where Chinese are involved very, very much. And in a certain way, the Arctic can be, could be in the future, an alternative or a partial alternative to Suez. We always look at other options. We know there was a rail project also in Israel and so on. I don't think that for the moment Suez has a real alternative. So it's not for tomorrow. It's not, and when I say tomorrow, I don't say tomorrow. I don't say the next 10 years, 5 to 10. But if the same statement 10 years ago was on a stone, now is not on a stone. I mean, something is changing. Something is moving also because perhaps no one is a real alternative, but when you have many potential alternatives, and also the issue of the oil, the cost of oil, because what we saw on the Cape of Good Hope, it's something to have in mind, because I don't think, this is something on another hand we do the analysis on oil and energy, but we don't think that the price of oil will increase and will be high in the near future or in the long future, because we are all moving or renewables, green energy, hydrogen. There are environment issues, climate change, and so on. So we don't think that oil will be so high price of oil in the near future. So also a longer route can be an alternative. So we should keep in mind. So, but in any case, the point is Suez is Suez. So it's very stable in a strategic positioning. But there are many alternatives. And this is something to have clear in mind. So not so sure that it was 10 years ago. Suez 10 years ago was, I mean, if you want to come to the Mediterranean, you have to pass to Suez. It is not yet so statement based on stone. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Yigal?
Well, I have a few points. We start from the, not from Ashdod and Haifa that Brandon was asking. We'll get to that later. First of all, regarding the Arctic route, I don't think, first of all, I am saying that never say never, you know, but you could hear already from declarations coming from MSHE and CMA CGM that they will not use the NSR routes for any liner shipping activity, and it is understood, you know, because it's very difficult to keep a fixed schedule, especially during the winter time, on a weekly service, and you cannot change for the clients, you know, the route each time. So I believe that, as Massimo said, it for the near future, near we can say 10 to 15 years even, we cannot see a serious liner shipping activity which will influence the Mediterranean. We can also look at the configuration of the liner shipping routes in the Mediterranean, and most of the lines which calls the Mediterranean are sailing only to the Mediterranean, and then coming back to Asia, you can see some that stop in just for transshipment or something in the end ports. Very few in Port Said, most of them in Gibraltar area, and it can be done also with ships that are sailing to North Europe. So I don't see a real influence on the Mediterranean in the beginning. The major activity today in the Arctic is mainly LNG activity from the port of Sabeta. And we know that there is a lot of traffic going during the summer, and also they have to consider the season, because during the summer they are sailing really to eastbound and going through the NSR to Japan and China. But during the winter, they are going westward to Northern Europe, and normally they are shipping the LNG in the port of Zeebrugge in Belgium, and then it's going in the traditional way through the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal to China. So it's really experimental, but as Massimo said, we have to keep an eye on that. It's very interesting what is developing there. And I have a feeling that we will have a lot of environmental constraints on everybody that we like to sail there regarding fuels and other things. So this is regarding the Adriatic, the Arctic, sorry. Regarding the Chinese activity in the logistics, there is something which is very important to remember, that China today, namely COSCO Shipping, is holding today is one of the major shipping companies in the world, and I can say that, and I'm talking about the east-west routes, which are the main shipping routes between Asia and the United States, and between Asia and Europe. And if you are taking the alliance, the Ocean Alliance, which COSCO is the dominant member of that, if you take it into consideration, they are having something like almost 40% of the capacity done by the Ocean Alliance, and in that COSCO, of course, is the dominant member. It can be explained mainly, I think, by the fact that most of the export cargo is being controlled in China on a CIF or on CF terms. It means that the buyer in Europe or in the States is buying the cargo, including the transportation. If we compare it to the normal life, it is like buying with eBay with a free shipping. You know, people don't want to deal with the shipping, and they buy it over there, and it gives a lot of advantage to the Chinese company and the companies in China itself. This can explain why COSCO is so dominant on in the shipping activity. The last issue, as Brandon was asking, was the Chinese. It's not the Chinese. It's the general public discussion about the issue and why they're talking more about Haifa and less about Ashdod. Well, it's very simple, because in Ashdod, the Chinese were involved only in the construction of the lower parts of the terminal. It means building the breakwater, building the base of the infrastructure. When they finished the road, they just left the terminal. And in Haifa, instead, the port was built by an Israeli company, and the Chinese, they took concession for operation. They're going to stay there for the coming 25 years, or 15 plus 10. And it has to be also underlined that it is going to be a full Israeli company with Chinese shareholder, and a minor presence in the terminal. We can compare it, for example, to Piraeus, in which we can see that in the PCT, in the terminal in Piraeus, you have about 1,000 all over Greek employees, and only 10 Chinese are supervising the activity there.
Thank you, Yigal. Fulvio?
It's a good question. I mean, in terms of how much we have considered the alternatives to the Suez choice. Of course, together with the SRM, we had a wide, we performed a wide analysis, but you know, our last years, what we have learned is that from the point of view of a single port, that is different from the point of view of the whole system. It's very difficult to make analysis and to foresee what will happen in the next five years. It doesn't make sense to plan in a very detailed manner your strategy after 5 years. Is really so much. I remember when we drafted the national strategic plan. At the beginning, the government wanted a vision at the 2030 with the same detail that the vision of the short term. It was not possible. So in my opinion, this is your point is a very good point, but this should be addressed by the national government. And I know that the minister declared in his plan of activities in this year that a new version of the national ports and logistic plan will be issued in the coming months, and that will be the official place where these global strategic challenges will be addressed because this is something that you cannot compete by alone. And on the other hand, what we are trying to create in Taranto, just because it was in the last years a place where a lot of bad things happen, is to react with, as I told you, with innovation, and in order to create a place where there is a reason why to invest. We are not just an infrastructure, because the infrastructure is not enough. It's not important how long is your berth, how deep are your seabed, but it's important if someone going to Taranto is able to find a good connection, if is able to find the right knowledge, the connection with the universities, with the research center, and everything. I was involved in a study by the president of the Council of the Ministers a couple of years ago. We went through some special economic zones in the center of Europe, and most of the investors, they said that the reason why to invest in that area at the beginning was fiscal incentives, but after a couple of years, the reason was because there is the ecosystem for my business. So, of course, simplification incentives are the first reason, but after a while, if you are able to create an ecosystem, you are giving something more than your infrastructures.
Thank you, Fulvio. Enrico, you wanted to ask, and perhaps we'll let Massimo reply first because he has to leave very, very soon.
Unfortunately.
Yes. I'm going to be very fast, actually, and then I keep my comment for later. So let Massimo leaving. Thank you very much for the discussion. My question are three. First one is like impact of reshoring on supply chain and Europe, East Asia route. The second one is you mentioned that Chinese companies are investing in improving the logistic component and the logistic efficiency, but logistic efficiency obviously has political segment. Has a political impact locally in the hosting country. For example, trade unions, I think. So If we look at Piraeus, could you see like how, for example, an operator like Costco, you know, dealt with these like classical local political constraints in order to improve efficiency? And my last question is like the development of special economic zones in southern Italy, which is a very interesting example, in my opinion, of localization of, practices that are very much, you know, rooted in the Chinese, you know, methodology and model. So can you tell us how special economic zones in Italy are going to be developed? I mean, what's the state of the art? Thank you.
Massimo,
Yes,
we'll go with you first.
I try to reply. I mean, each question need some minutes, but I try to give you a brief overview. So reshoring, just to say that in general terms, I think that one of the consequences of COVID-19 will be worldwide, not only in Italy, to push for reshoring. So I expect, for example, for some Italian companies to review their strategies, the strategies they had in the last years to move and to open branches and especially for the production. Because one of the key points during the COVID crisis was also the crisis of some supply chain. So this is a point of weakness for the global economy, but also for each company, especially for big companies. So in general terms, I see, or to put more attention when deciding for investing abroad, what kind of investment, if it is or not strategic, the enlargement of the list of strategic sector. I mean, all a wave again to try to reshore, or in any case to limit foreign investment in some strategic areas. Political impact of investment in logistics, but not global impact, local impact. From that point of view, I think that Chinese are able to learn quickly. So it is true that, for example, dealing with unions, with the problems of local, politics and so on is not so easy, but they learn quickly. So I don't see as a problem from their point of view, but it can become a problem from from the European point of view in that moment, because what I already said before, when your view, when the narrative about you is positive or neutral, when you have a low profile, but in general terms, everyone says, okay, but the Chinese, you know, they are there for business, no problem. When the narrative is positive, everything is positive. But when the narrative is not so positive, also from trade union, local politics, the wave, the sound, the narrative can be different. Special economic zone, I think now we are in the good moment, because after having wait a long time, because this is a project since 2 years ago, so we wait 2 years now. All the Italian ports in the south of Italy have their own project for the special economic zone, and I also think that what is happening in Brussels in these days, the Recovery Fund, the Green New Deal, the European money to support the economy of the European countries, especially the countries where you have most hit by the crisis, and Italy was one of these, are for strategic projects, not helicopter money. and special economic zone for many angles are coherent with the new main drivers of the European Union. So also from that point of view, I think that is the right moment to start. And some ports, and the Taranto port is one of these, are really, really ready, also because well managed. And I don't say that because Fulvio is there, but because I really think that.
Thank you so much, Massimo.
And really sorry, but I have a constraint now for another call. So, but
we are very grateful.
You can always reach me if you want by mail or by another call, and we can continue.
So, Massimo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope next time to be in Tel Aviv.
Exactly.
We hope so too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Fulvio, Fulvio, would you like to reply to Enrico's question?
Yes, I replied to the question where I can add something, especially special economic zone. We are working closely with the government. The status of the art is that now 2 more special economic zone has been approved in Sicily and in Regione Abruzzo. And another one in Sardinia is very close to be approved. So now almost all the southern regions has their own special economic zone approved. In Regione Apulia, we have also 2 different special economic zones. Because sometimes, as I told you, we are able to divide what is not dividable. But this is the first fact. From the governance point of view, most of the special economic zone has their governance in place. I mean, the governance is centered on the port authority. Then there is a special committee composed by the representatives of the regions. The new minister, Provenzano, decided to put a new coordinator, this is called commissario, commissioner, on top of the existing committee. So this is supposed to be a special link, a direct link from government to the special economic zone. This is not a choice that has been welcomed by all of the regions, but anyway, this is something that is going to happen, and we are waiting. We've been waiting 4 months for this commissioner because we don't feel to be so free to make choices in this moment. What is interesting is that some of the incentives are already in place, nobody knows, but if you make an investment and you are spending money in one of the eligible areas of this law, you can have fiscal incentives. And this is not something that is controlled by the port authority, but this is directly from the Ministry of Economy and Finance. So they are active, but the COVID arrived when most of the southern region was starting to launch their marketing plan. So it has been somehow frozen. The European Commission is following very closely the process because they identified an advisor to support the, how can I say, design of the processes to be used in order to attract and then to formalize the presence of the new investors, because there are many different choices, and they are working closely with the special economic zone. So we are in the middle of the river, I guess, and some of us are more active. Others has, for instance, we are very active, but we don't have enough staff, enough people, and since the law, according to the law, you cannot hire people for the special economic zone. You have to do something with your own staff, and this is clever. And anyhow, I guess it is a big opportunity, but the law was not built properly. So if the new government will have the possibility to change and to simplify, would be great. The other 2 questions, I don't remember
One, if you see reshoring having an impact on trade, I mean, on the Belt and Road, basically. So on the Europe Far East route.
Yeah, but from this point of view, I agree with Massimo, Deandreis. I don't have any much to add. Now, okay, I remember what I wanted to add something regarding the approach of the Chinese investors in terms of how to deal with the unions and so on. I agree with the fact that they learn very much. And they have their approach, I would define like adaptable. I mean, they are really having the shape of the place where they have to go. And I really was surprised because you know, when you hear about this investment, like in Piraeus, you hear about these big Chinese companies going there. I am the boss. You have to work. I don't want to work with nobody. I'm very close. There is a wall between the port and the business environment. What we experience, but I repeat, this is just we don't have a direct Chinese investment for the time being, but their approach was really different, and we saw people very well prepared about the situation, and very open to collaborate and aware of the Italian law and of the Italian situation. In our port, we received very recently a request for concession by, this is public information, by the Ferretti Group, that is a Chinese multinational owned also by Chinese companies in the field of yachting. And this is very important because the idea is to create within the port a place where to build a luxury yacht. And this really change the shape and also the change of the port, and will help the differentiation of our business.
Thank you, Fulvio. Yigal?
Yes, I would like only to adhere to a few things which were said here. First of all, regarding efficiency, we have to understand that efficiency does not mean, you know, that they are entering to a foreign port and they are changing rules and regulations. Efficiency means, for example, that they are increasing the number of direct calls. For example, taking into consideration, for example, the port of Taranto, if you want to enjoy from the rich industrial hinterland of Taranto, you have to call Taranto in a direct call, and you don't call Naples or Bari, but you have to go to Taranto as a port, as a domestic port, unless you want to make it also a transshipment hub, and this is another issue. So efficiency means that you are calling the port by itself. Of course, by being in the terminal, being in the port, you can also influence on the improvement of customs procedures and the other things. You can influence on that, but you cannot change it. I have also to say that sometimes we are also getting, I don't want to say we, but I say that one can get a sensation from the Chinese. They don't. I mean, they learn. They learn. I don't want to say they learn fast, but I have sometimes the feeling that they are looking on the Western way of conducting things in a way of supremacy. You know, it seems that sometimes they do not understand how we succeed to run the world in the way that we are doing it, and they are learning. They are learning the procedures, but I'm not sure that they understand the procedure. But their presence in the terminal reminds me that years ago, for example, we had a new fashion in the shipping industry that suddenly, I think it was something like, let's say 20 years ago, generalizing the phenomena, 20 years ago, shipping companies started to purchase, to acquire terminals. Maersk, you know, started to buy terminals, then other companies came to that. MSC became a very active terminal operator, and I remember that on that time in the industry, there was the idea that those shipping companies are taking concessions and they are operating terminals in order to favor it, and to assist their own activity as shipping companies. For example, they say that it was said that time that Maersk is buying a terminal in order to facilitate and to assist Maersk activity in the future. So I think that this was also done by Chinese interests. We have to understand that China is not controlling all the terminals in the Mediterranean. They are just taking key points, and they are investing there. Maybe the idea is in the future, to assist and to support the Chinese export to, like talking about the liner shipping, to assist the Chinese exports to Europe, in the States and other countries, because this is the most important thing. So this is my idea regarding the efficiency and the reason for the Chinese presence in the terminal. And I think that there are some terminals which are really strategic points, and I think I talked with you, Ori, about that. That I think that in Piraeus, it is only that they are calling Piraeus for economic reasons. I think that we can see today in Piraeus a new gateway, a new entrance to Europe, which is substituting the North European ports. For example, moving a container in the past from, let's say, importing a container in the past from Asia to Budapest, to Hungary, was usually done through Hamburg. The ship was coming to Hamburg or to Bremerhaven, and then by train it was going to even to Vienna, even to Austria, to Hungary, to Poland, etc. What we can see now is that the Chinese, they are building a new gateway. They bring their cargo to Piraeus, and then you have a few daily trains which goes up, all the way to the Balkans and even to Hungary and what we call the 17+1 countries. It means that they do not need anymore the gateway in Hamburg or Bremen or that stuff. This is something which will happen in the future. For now, the activity is very limited, but what we see is a new routing of cargo entering into Europe. And I have the feeling that the port authorities in North Europe, Holland, Germany, and that area, feel very uncomfortable with the development of Piraeus. If everybody, I think, remember that the Chinese are also bidding on the train from Piraeus up to the Balkans, and then the Ferrovia dello Stato, the Italian train, succeeded to win the bid. But even so, the Chinese came to a third party into that the train activity, and they are operating that line. So Piraeus is a new routing up to Europe. Maybe it also explains it is another continuation of the big interests of China with all those countries of the 17 plus 1. And this is another possibility. So actually, logistic-wise, you are connecting all that area of Central Europe and Eastern Europe, one side through the land by the famous road, on the weekly or daily trains which are going from China, and from the sea, from Piraeus, and then actually you are connecting all that area in a completely new way, which is emphasizing the position of Piraeus and is also emphasizing the position of the Suez Canal, because you cannot do this from other direction. This is not the case of other terminals, because, for example, if you take the new interest, or not the new interest, the entrance of China to the or Costco shipping ports, for example, to the new terminal in Vado Ligure, near the Savona, near Genova, it is not a new routing of cargo. It is true that APMT, Maersk terminals, were really, I would say, a little bit tired from what happened to them in Genova, in Goltri, another terminal, and they decided to build their own terminal in Savona. But I think that it is a local, it is like a gateway. The same you can also adhere to Valencia, because everybody was looking on the purchase of Noatum, the Spanish company by Costco, as a revolution in the Mediterranean, but it is gate port. It is not something which we can see in Piraeus, which, to my opinion, is a completely changing of the routing of the cargo into the 17+1 area.
Sorry,
And,
if I may just, Yigal, so this is the reason why Costco is investing so much is intermodal hubs, like, for example, the one in Budapest, the big hub.
I think so. If you can see, if you can look on Piraeus, and the Chinese interests are not, they are not stopping there. I think that I think it was few months ago that the Greek government refused to start building another stage, another container terminal in Piraeus, and making other investments, because I think that also, you know, today Costco Shipping port is controlling completely the port of Piraeus. They have also the majority in the port authority of Piraeus. When we are talking about the signing of the MOU, not the between the countries, but on the MOU between the port of Piraeus Port Authority and the Autorità Portuale of Trieste, it is very funny to see that the Chinese guy is signing in the name of the Port Authority of Piraeus when he's visiting and signing the agreement of cooperation between the two port authorities. But I think, as I said, Enrico, that what we see is a completely new routing of cargo entering to Europe, which will really cut a lot of market share from the North European ports.
thank you, Yigal. I think that this also means that, as always, when you change trade routes and shipping routes and the logistic lines, it means a huge impact on local society in different places there, but that exceeds the limits of our discussion. I would just like, if you could, in a very short time, Fulvio and Yigal, remark, because one of the things that we keep talking about is China's involvement and China's investments and so on and so forth. But the way that both China and the US frame their relationship as a competition in recent years means that we are trying to find that competition. And I would like you, as the people, as I said earlier, on the ground, on the sea, do you see any competition when you are engaging in various investment projects, whatever that you are doing? Do you see a competition from, let's say, the US or American companies, or even European major companies, when it comes to your own projects?
To be honest, what I see is that your port becomes interesting after that the Chinese have visited of port. And I said, no, really, because of course we are a public entity, so our doors are open to all the investors. We don't have any I mean, everything is welcome. But the fact that we received some, and everything was public, some visit from the Chinese companies, there were many reactions in the public opinion in some political parties, and this is linked to the fact that you know this is somehow perceived as a problem. But we are, our mandate is to valorize and to attract investments and to valorize the huge public investments that have been done. So coming back to your question, the competition is where, in my opinion, both parties has the willing to invest and to create business and to create logistic activities there. It's like if, I repeat, in our case, we became interesting because someone arrived and they decided to invest, but not because there was a real interest in Taranto, because we didn't receive so many visits, I mean, right, from all over the world. And but it's a strategic position. Of course, we are in the middle of the Med. We are very close to other public entities, military sites there. So this can be seen as a problem. But in my opinion, having the right balance of investment, of course, sometimes we received also from the Emirates visits of investors. The approach was, how can I buy the land, the port? How can I buy the land, part of the port? So we are not allowed to do that. So we have the concession as an instrument that has to be published. So I mean, there are some tools that if you are able to balance the presence of the different stakeholders and parties, you can somehow manage. This is my opinion.
Thank you. Yigal? Mute.
Well, first of all, as Fulvio was mentioning, regarding the international interests in Italy, I think that there are more people interested in buying a villa in Toscana or in Puglia than those which are interested in buying a villa in Haifa or Ashdod. But being more serious, I would say that, and this is a political mind which I am very careful. I want to bypass it and to dismantle it before I will talk about it, because as I said in the beginning, my expertise is logistics, not other things. But I think that, as I mentioned in the beginning of the discussion, we have to understand that today COSCO shipping is controlling almost 20% of the traffic between Asia, not China, Asia in general, and the United States. COSCO shipping in general is holding almost the same percentage between Asia and Europe. And I mentioned before that the alliance in which they are is controlling something like 40%. It means that if we are looking on the competition between the United States and China, there is no competition in the logistic aspect, because you don't have almost any serious presence of the American companies in the global logistics. I mean, you can find some ships which are still sailing with American flag, mainly regarding governmental cargoes. But there is no presence there, so we are forced to work with, the world is forced to work with Chinese shipping companies, which are giving an excellent service to the client, but you don't have the possibility to choose the American side. And as I said before, we're talking about the Chinese export, which until now is the most dominant in the world, due to the fact that the cargo is mostly controlled in China on a CNF or CIF basis. It will continue the trend unless, as Massimo said, there will be a change in the globalization process, and the industry will start to go back to the West, which I have my doubts about that. I don't see that the industry, people are talking about against the globalization. People are quite concerned about a lot of disruptions in the supply chains during the COVID-19 period. But when things will pass away, I have the feeling, and my experience showed that people have a very short memory when it comes to economies and to the costs of living and stuff like that.
Thank you very much, Yigal. Thank you very much, Fulvio. Thank you, Enrico and Brandon. I would like to end with that note, and let's hope for a better time and healthier times. And next time, Israel, Italy, Beijing, wherever we can. Thank you.